The no bullshit guide to building an aesthetic body. How to actually become aesthetic. On the left, we have a picture of me from when I was 15, before I did any sort of training. And so as you can see, the jumper is baggy. It's super baggy. And what does that tell? That my physique was scrawny, it was skinny as fuck. And so obviously that was the period in my life when I got the least girls, when I was the horniest. I was like jacking off like 3 to 4 times a day. I was just like super horny, puberty kicked in. Sure, I was a late bloomer, but like puberty had suddenly struck. It made me super horny, bad with women. And, sometimes puberty positively affects others. And for other people, it hits them like a sack of potatoes. And it hit me like a sack of potatoes. Puberty made me one weird motherfucker. So, that's that. On the right, we have a picture of when I moved in for freshers, and this is my current physique. As you can see, we made lots of progress, and I'm not gonna lie, my current physique right now has gotten me more girls than it ever has. It got me way more girls than when I was 18, which I'll show you in the next slide. Why listen to me? Well, obviously, you can see these pictures. The first one over here is 5 months into training. At the start, so over here, in this picture, I was 49 kilos at 5'6". 0 months of training. In this picture, I'm 55 kilos at 5'6". So in both those starting images, even when I had been doing training, even the girls were bigger and stronger than me. If we are going to look at the average weight of an average girl, and by average I don't mean like the fat UK woman here that just can't control their eating habits. No, we're not talking about those ones. We're talking about an average or maybe even athletic woman. Usually they are between the height range of 5'2" to 5'6" or 5'7", and they're usually in the low 50s. And so I was 55 kilos. Most of my girlfriends have been around 54 kilos. So like, I was fucking skinny. I'm not gonna lie. Why would I lie to you guys? But I was fucking skinny. And so that just shows how shit my genetics were when I started off. Even 5 months of training, I was the same weight as an average girl. 5 months of consistent training and hard work, I just managed to become the same weight as an average potentially athletically built woman, which is not great. Now, let's move to the middle picture. When I was 75 kilos, this was when I was 18, so this was 3 years later. And we did make lots of progress, but my physique was still lacking something. And so obviously, I had these lovely thick arms and, this nice chest. I mean, I still have a nice chest, but I have these nice thick arms and I was proper bulked up. So I'd put on 20 kilos since this picture right here. I went to 75 kilos and I was bulky. I definitely had that mass. But I still didn't like my physique and I still didn't really get that many results with women. Yeah, I wasn't completely single and lonely like this version of me right here. But I did not exactly get the best results with women in this picture here either. And this was like some consistent work. I'd been working hard consistently for 3 years. I wanted that work to pay off, but unfortunately it didn't. I still had a physique that I wasn't quite happy with. And that's why I took all my pictures in the mirror from this specific angle. I would always do like the side angle with the arm like bent and like the phone out here, because that would actually cover up the shortcomings of my physique. For those of you experienced guys, if you guys are experienced in gym culture and you're watching this video, you will have noticed that my neck is pretty fucking skinny. I had a skinny neck. And yeah, that's when I was 18. Fast forward to right now, I took this picture like 2 days ago, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I feel fucking amazing with this body right now. I know it's definitely not as big as this version of me, but it definitely looks a lot better. And what is mass when it comes at the compromise, when it comes at the cost of aesthetics? It makes no sense. Sure, get some mass on your physique at first, but do not make mass the priority. The priority here is aesthetics, which is why this is an aesthetic body guide. I'm a lot more aesthetic here, and also I'm 4 kilos lighter than I was in this picture. So I'm 71 kilos right now at 5'8", so I'm really not that heavy. And you don't need to be either. So many guys are just chasing all the mass, thinking that more mass will make their physique look better. No, it won't. It's going to be the proportions, being lean, having muscle developed in the right areas, which will make you look aesthetic. And that's what this version of me did not realize, because when I was 18, I was just hammering my arms and chest and lats all the time. And sure, I did have that nice mass on my frame, but my physique was still shit, which was why I lacked confidence. I didn't just lack confidence, but I objectively looked less aesthetic than this picture of me. And so those two factors influenced my experiences with women and with attracting women. Since I objectively look better in this picture of me right here, that also made me more confident. Just look at the fucking shoulders, man. Look at that shit. The shoulders are fucking popping. So is the chest. The abs are just cut perfectly. Like here, yeah, you still can see my abs, but I'm a little bit fatter. But here they're nice and cut. We got the bicep vein popping. Yeah, sure, it's popping out here as well. But I was like 15% in this picture, and I'd say I'm around maybe 12% in this picture. And guess what? If you've noticed, my arms aren't even that big. We're going to talk about that later, but really it comes down to your proportions at the end of the day. You really do not need to be a mass monster. In fact, do not be a mass monster, because that shit repulses women. That shit scares the hoes away. If you're constantly chasing mass, not only does it objectively look ugly, like because they're not used to that shit on a biological level, not only does it look ugly, but it also shows that you're not comfortable in your own skin. And there's nothing that turns off a woman more than insecurity. Nothing turns a woman off more than insecurity. And that's just a really important thing to know. A woman wants to see that you are secure in your own body. And so this is why it's lovely to be aesthetic and not to be constantly chasing mass all the time. There's a certain point in this journey where you're going to have to accept that you've got a lovely physique, and then you're just going to have to maintain it from there. I think I've hit that point already. And it's been only 4 years of training. I'm super fucking happy with my physique. Not only does it get me the girls, it just looks absolutely amazing. I know I look healthy. And I actually feel a lot better because I'm not eating all this crap food that I was in when I was 18 just to pack on mass. That's another thing. Bodybuilders, especially the modern young gym bros of nowadays, they'll just eat whatever the fuck because they want to put on mass. It's like, I don't know, someone mentioned it. It's like an anxiety bulk. You pack on mass because you think that packing on the mass will make people less likely to mess with you, but it just makes you look like shit. So stay lean. That's what you really need to learn about building an aesthetic body. An aesthetic body will always be lean. You cannot be aesthetic and fat at the same time. One thing I wanted to tell you guys though, because I know most influencers or most people that would make an aesthetic body guide, sure, they would have their progress pictures in the video, but they would also have some videos and clips of them having fun with women, showing that they're pre-selected and all that. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not going to be a lying cunt. Why would I be a fucking lying cunt to you guys? But I'm just going to say, interacting with hot women has become such a normal part of my day-to-day life that I'm in such a flow state when I interact because I'm in the moment. I don't pull out my phone and record videos of me having a good time with women. I'm so in the moment that I forget to capture things, which is why you won't see any pictures or videos with me of me with other women. Maybe you might in future videos, but for this one, I don't have any. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's actually move on to how you build the aesthetic physique. And this video is specifically talking about the muscles that you need developed. It's about the muscles and which ones should be prioritized above the others. Because at the end of the day, beauty is subjective, and we'll cover that later on in this video. So, the muscles priority list is as follows. For aesthetics, the most important are your shoulders, and the least important are your legs for obvious reasons. And if you want to go even deeper with this, I'm selling a course and it goes on an even deeper level with this information. And it's got an ebook included. If you want to go check that out, it's the top link in the description. But let's get back to this. Your shoulders are the most important and your legs are the least important. But the second most important, most guys don't fucking know this. It's actually the neck. People might say, oh, your chest is the second most important, or your arms. No, it's not. It's your neck. And then comes your traps. It's the upper section. This is the most important part to have developed of the physique. The upper section of the torso is the most important when it comes to building an attractive and aesthetic body. We literally can see that with these pictures right here, because I'm not even as big as in this picture. I'm 71 kilos right now, but in this picture I was 75. And as we can see, my arms, they are considerably thicker, but here they aren't as big. But the upper torso is developed. I've got a thicker neck in this picture than I do here. And I just look better in the third picture than I do in the second. And I had massive arms in the second. Okay, they weren't massive, but they were a lot bigger and bulkier. The upper torso is really the most important. You can literally see I just look way better in the third one. Not because I'm leaner, well, that as well, but my upper torso is just way more developed. I've got bigger shoulders right now than I did 1 year ago. The neck, the traps, then come your lats, because the lats aren't actually as important as the shoulders. Your lats, they do give you a V-taper, but really most of the V-taper comes from the shoulders. No one's walking with their lats flared out like this at the end of the day. No one's walking with a lat spread. So your shoulders are actually going to be where most of the V-taper comes from. Because your shoulder at the end of the day, your shoulders at the end of the day, they are like the single muscle on your physique that look big when they are relaxed. And when are they contracted? When you're doing lateral raises. Have you not noticed when you do lateral raises, your shoulders suddenly go from like these round cylinders to fucking flat. They just become fucking flat. Your shoulders are the only muscle that look bigger when they are relaxed. And so when you're standing normally, your muscles are going to be relaxed. And this is why your shoulders are the most important to develop. The V-taper comes from your shoulders. Your lats, sure, they do give you that V-taper, but the lats really just push out the arms to the side. But the V-taper itself is mostly from the shoulders. If you're flexing, then sure, lots of the V-taper comes from the lats. But if you're standing like a normal person and you've got normal posture, or you're just walking in your day-to-day life like a normal human being, most of your width is going to come from the shoulders, because your shoulders are going to be relaxed and they are simply just bigger muscles when they are relaxed than when they are contracted. Your arms as well, we're going to talk about why arms are pretty low down on the list. 18-year-old me would have been like, what the fuck? Why are arms all the way down here on this list? We'll get to that in a second. Or not in a second, but we'll get to that later in this video. But why is it like this? At the end of the day, form follows function. Nature doesn't give a fuck about aesthetics. We didn't actually evolve to think that certain body shapes are pretty or attractive. The V-taper is more attractive than a rectangular body as a man, simply because of the biological cues that it gives off. And so get ripped, stop being fat, stop being out of shape, because at the end of the day, we are not all beautiful. Sure, beauty doesn't have strict rules to it, but it has guidelines. And if those guidelines aren't being followed, well then, you're not going to be beautiful. I don't care how that sounds. There are guidelines to what makes an aesthetic physique, and if you just disobey those guidelines or you just not follow them at all, then your physique is going to look fucking shit. Which is why I'm teaching you how to build an aesthetic physique. I'm giving you the guidelines on what makes the physique aesthetic. So get ripped, stop being fat. Not everyone is born beautiful, not everyone is beautiful. A V-taper is more attractive than a rectangular body as a man, simply because, as we mentioned, it gives off a certain biological cue that makes the woman think that he's a good bet for her survival. Wide shoulders, we'll get to that in a second. Form follows function. Why are shoulders the most important on this list? Why are they all the way up at the top? Because shoulders, they signal testosterone-driven development and male sexual maturity. What does this mean? When you went to school, there must have been 100% one guy that just went through puberty earlier than all the other kids. The early bloomer, the guy that hit puberty early. He often got the most girls, obviously, because he developed early on. Testosterone-driven development. He got that early on. Male sexual maturity. He started clapping cheeks earlier on in his life. And so that guy most likely had wide shoulders. Wide shoulders is often a trait of strength and masculinity. It signals that your body has developed. Wide shoulders. You ain't gonna see a fucking you're not gonna see a fucking late bloomer with these wide fucking clavicles or like a late bloomer with these massive wrists. No, it's the guys with high testosterone that have the builds that we aspire to have. And the reason why we want to look like them is because their build literally signals to women that they are a good bet for the woman's survival and reproduction. Function. In ancient times, developed shoulders allowed us to throw spears and throw punches. We're going to talk about function of the most important three muscles, your shoulder, your neck, and your traps, because this really ties into why women have evolved to find wide shoulders attractive, or like to find certain muscle groups attractive. Function goes into all of this. Function is literally the backbone of why certain physiques are aesthetic and why others simply aren't. You know, with our shoulders, developed shoulders are just a lot better to have. They were a lot better to have in ancient times because, in ancient times, we just relied on our bodily strength to get shit done. We relied on our strength to hunt animals. Like in this case, you needed some strong shoulders to throw a spear like 20 meters so that I could kill the wild boar. You needed strength for that. You needed strength in your shoulders to throw punches so that you could, for example, defend your partner or your kids from any attackers that wanted to steal the resources or even, God knows, do caveman shit that wouldn't be good for you, you know? The guy with the small shoulders or the guy that was less strong overall would not have been able to physically defend himself or his partner or his kids from danger. And so the shoulders reflect that. The V-taper is the most important part of the physique because the V-taper just signals strength. This is why you need to have a small waist, because if your waist is wide, you're not going to have a V-taper. You're going to look fucking rectangular. And a V-taper is the single most important thing of the physique that makes you look strong. If you don't have a good V-taper, you can't be aesthetic. You can't be aesthetic in the eyes of nature and in the eyes of women that want to fuck. Your V-taper is the most important. It signals strength. Your neck. No one ever trains their fucking neck. I kind of do understand why people don't train neck. It doesn't actually seem that important, but it actually really is important. Because at the end of the day, your neck is visible, no matter what clothing you wear. You could wear a tank top, or you could wear a turtleneck. At the end of the day, if you still got a skinny neck, that's still going to be visible. People are still going to notice that you've got a skinny neck, no matter what clothing you wear. And why is having a thick neck important? Why does it tie into having an aesthetic body? Why is it super important to have a thick neck if you want a sexually attractive body in the eyes of women? Well, the neck is just like the shoulders. It also signals testosterone-driven development. So it also signals that you're actually developed and you're actually a man, most importantly. And it thickens under the influence of androgens in the body. Androgens are just male sex hormones. So if you have more testosterone and DHT, which is dihydrotestosterone, your neck will naturally be thick. So it's also a biological cue that you are strong and therefore a good bet for her survival. Because the neck stabilizes the head and it improves impact absorption. And so why is this super important? Why is the function of stabilizing the head and improving the ability to absorb impact. Why is that important? Well, simply because if you get punched in the face and you've got a skinny neck, you're going to fall to the fucking ground. If you've got a skinny neck, you're not going to be able to resist knockouts. If you have a thick neck, though, you're way more able to resist knockouts and you're way more likely to keep standing if someone punches you in the head really hard. This is why you see all these fighters, Mike Tyson, Canelo Alvarez, all these boxers, they have massive necks because having a massive neck makes them more resistant to knockout. And what does being resistant to knockout mean? It means that they're harder to physically overpower. They are more difficult to physically overpower. And so that is why having a thick neck has become a trait that women find attractive. It's not the neck itself that they find attractive. Just like it's not the shoulders that they find attractive. It's not the shoulders themselves that make the woman find the physique attractive. It's not the muscles themselves that they find attractive. It's the subconscious biological cues that they give off that tell her this guy is a good bet for your survival and therefore your reproductive value. This makes her attracted to you because at the end of the day, we're humans, we've developed for thousands of years, and clearly these traits that make you strong are the ones that brought us far. Because if it weren't for these traits, if these traits didn't serve any purpose, like if having a thick neck didn't stabilize the head, then having a thick neck wouldn't actually be important in the pursuit of aesthetics. If having developed shoulders served no biological purpose or didn't signal anything on a biological level, then shoulders wouldn't be an important part of the physique. Then developing shoulders wouldn't be important in having a good aesthetic physique. Aesthetic just comes from what women, or like aesthetics in general, just comes down to biological cues that served their purpose for thousands and thousands of years. Form follows function. Now let's move on to your traps. They're a blessing to have. I used to have big traps, like I had these slanted traps as a 15-year-old, and so when I started training, I thought they were a fucking curse because my shoulders were narrow and I didn't have developed shoulders, and having the traps already developed dwarfed my shoulders. But actually, they're a blessing to have if you train your shoulders and your neck. Developed traps, they pull your shoulders back, which gives you an open-chested posture. The function of the traps is lifting and carrying heavy shit, which made it very important for hunter-gatherer days, where you would gather resources and you would fight off people that wanted to steal your shit. Like the neck and the shoulders, they respond extremely well to androgens. They've got lots of androgen receptors. So this also means if you have high testosterone in your body, you won't just have wide shoulders and a good neck, but you'll have decent trap development. This also ties into protective morphology. You know, your traps thicken your physique. And so when they thicken your physique, it gives women the subconscious cue that you are able to defend yourself. Because thick traps, they are strong. Having strong traps allows you to do things like carry heavy shit or grapple people to the ground. You know, you use your traps when you lift heavy shit, and humans are heavy at the end of the day. They're not that easy to lift up. And so having thick traps, it's another biological cue. It tells her this man is strong. This man can probably fight off some bad guys and he can carry some heavy shit, which are important things that you needed in ancient times. But not only does the function give off the biological cue, but also having the developed traps, when it pulls your shoulders back and gives you an open-chested posture, that signals confidence. You're just going to look more confident if your shoulders are back. Even if you're not naturally confident, it's at least going to give off the illusion that you could be confident, simply just because your shoulders are retracted. Often, guys that aren't confident, they have slouched posture, and that shit's unattractive. But the guy that all the women flock towards, the guy that's charismatic, that's confident, that's happy, he's often going to have open-chested posture. And so traps, they're great to have. Traps are another biological cue that tell a woman, yes, he's the man. Your lats. Your lats are the fourth most important muscle. I used to prioritize lats above the shoulders when I was training as a 15 to 18 year old, because I thought most of the V taper comes from your lats. Sure, your lats give you a V taper, but as we just mentioned, most of the V taper comes from the shoulders, because your shoulders look bigger when they are relaxed. The lats, what they do most of the time is they just push your arms out to the side. Sure, you will get some extra V taper from your lats, even if you're standing normally. But most of the V taper, as we just mentioned, it comes from your shoulders. It comes from the shoulders. No one's walking around with a lat spread at the end of the day. And so if you've got developed lats, but your shoulders are small, you're not going to have as good a V taper as the guy that's got the good lats and the good shoulders. The V taper comes from the shoulders mostly. I'd say it's like 70% shoulders and 30% lats. I know that sounds a bit crazy, but train your fucking shoulders. Obviously, do not skip your lats either, because your lats, they do contribute to an aesthetic silhouette, but most of the V taper, it comes from the shoulders. Your chest just contributes to the thickness of your physique. Train your chest so you're not flat from the side. And one of the important things here, beginners should prioritize their lower chest over the upper chest. People are going to freak out over this because everyone says that your upper chest is more important than your lower chest. And that is true to some extent. But actually, if you're a beginner and you've got a completely flat chest, like your chest is flat, it's like an ironing board and it's got no definition whatsoever. You can't see any cleavage, any shape, you can't see the insertions. Hit your lower chest, because your lower chest makes up most of the actual pec muscle itself. Because the upper chest is only a small portion at the top. The lower chest makes up most of the mass of the chest. The lower chest, if you train your lower chest, you're way more likely to see results quicker than training your upper chest strictly. Because when you train your lower chest, you're going to get the shadows on the bottom of the pec. You're going to get those, like the crease lines. You're going to get those way more quickly. And you're also going to get most of the cleavage of your chest way more quickly when you train your lower chest over your upper chest. Focus on your lower chest first, and then as you progress and as you get a better physique, then you can emphasize more of the upper chest. But really, as a beginner, you want to get as much definition down as possible. And that comes from training your lower chest in this case. Your lower chest is what gives it the shape. The upper chest is what gives it its fullness. If you just train your lower chest and you just do that, you're going to get a saggy tit looking pec. And this is why the upper chest is important as well. So if you don't want droopy tit looking pecs, train your upper chest. But for beginners that have no chest at all, hit your lower chest. That's the important priority here. Your arms, do not overdevelop them. They should be no bigger than your neck. And if you want good looking arms, prioritize your biceps over your triceps. And if you just want to have a bit more mass on your arms, prioritize your triceps over your biceps. When I was 18, I just hammered my arms a lot. Arm day was the most important day of the week. I think I only had an arm day, a chest day, and a lats day. Anything else, I didn't really train. Yeah, I did some shoulders here and there. I think I did shoulders I incorporated shoulders into my arm days. But the most important muscle for me was my arms. You do not want to overdevelop them, because having overdeveloped arms will dwarf your shoulders. You do not want any muscle on your body to dwarf your shoulders, and that includes your traps. Sure, your traps are super fucking important, but you do not want them so developed that your shoulders look small because your traps are just massive. And the same thing with your arms. You do not want massive arms and small shoulders. If we look at this slide again, my arms are significantly slimmer here. Sure, they've got more definition, but the shoulders, they are still the most dominant muscle on the physique. Whereas here, I've got these thick arms, but the shoulder is less prominent. Having big arms, having overdeveloped arms, it does not make you look good. It makes your physique look half-assed. It makes it look a bit sloppy. When you have massive arms and small shoulders, you kind of look like a fat person from the side. Like you got like the fat person type of arm. Like the arm is like big, but there's like zero shoulder. You kind of look fat when you've got like massive arms but no shoulders. Your arms are not allowed to be overdeveloped for that reason. And they should certainly not be bigger than your neck. Your arms should be the same size as your neck. In the perfect scenario, your arms should be the same size as your neck. If you want good looking arms, prioritize your biceps, because the biceps are just the show off muscle, really. When someone asks you to flex, they're going to see your bicep, not your tricep. But if you just want to have some mass on your arms because you're a beginner, your triceps are more important. And having the mass, of course, it's important. Don't go overboard with it. But having the mass here is important because more muscle mass on the frame would subconsciously signal strength, which is then again a biological marker. But the triceps make up 2/3 of the arm. So if you want to get massive arms, or if you want to get bigger arms, focus on your tricep training, because your triceps make up 2/3 of the mass of your arm. Whereas if you want your arm to look good, you train the bicep. But just because they have different functions, like aesthetic wise on your physique, just because biceps are the so-called show-off muscle and triceps are just the mass muscle, does not mean you train one or the other. You train both of them. Because on one hand, if you just train biceps, your arms aren't going to be that big. But sure, they'll have that sweeping bicep curve when you're just standing relaxed and people can see them from the side. Sure, you'll have your biceps, but your arms won't be that big. You don't want these big blubbery arms though. You want to have your aesthetic arms, and so that's what the biceps are for. Train your biceps and your triceps, because the full package is always better than half. And when it comes to your forearms, from my experience, they developed naturally because I do lots of calisthenics. When you're naturally lifting heavy shit, you're going to have to put a lot of grip strength into those lifts, otherwise you won't be able to develop the forearms. But the forearms are less important than the biceps and the triceps, simply because they are just a less noticeable muscle overall on the body. So if we were to prioritize, we'd put triceps first, then biceps, then forearms. Sure, it's a bit weird that I put triceps first, even though they're not directly the most aesthetic muscle, but aesthetics just comes down to strength and what looks strong at the end of the day. The bigger arm is going to look stronger than the slim arm that's got more definition. That's just how it is. Your abs, these are the least important muscle for objectively looking good. They're the cherry on top, and they definitely enhance your physique. A good set of developed abs will make you look leaner if you have a higher body fat. You know, Steve Reeves, if we take a look at Steve Reeves' physique, Steve Reeves was a bodybuilder from the 1940s. He competed in the 1940s. But if you take a look at his physique, his abs aren't absolutely massive. Sure, they are definitely shredded and you can see them when he flexes. But really what makes his physique is his V-taper. That's what makes his physique really aesthetic. But he does not have like massive abs. And sure, since he's a super aesthetic without the abs, it does not mean that he wouldn't look better if he didn't train his abs. If he hit abs even more, then that would have certainly enhanced the look. Abs are the cherry on the top. They just make you look leaner, even if you're not necessarily that lean. Like when you start bulking up to over 15% body fat, which I don't really recommend because you start to get bloated and your face starts puffing up. But if you were to bulk up and become a little bit puffy and you've got a good set of developed abs, it makes you look 1 or 2% leaner. I'd say 1% for most people. Abs are a muscle, and so if you train them, they will just pop through the fat. You could, if you wanted good abs, you could just be super lean, or you could be super lean and you could train them. Then they would look absolutely fantastic. So train your abs if you want maximum aesthetics. Sure, this is a muscles priority list, but just because certain muscles are more important in terms of aesthetics than others, this does not mean that you get to skip muscles. And sure, legs are the least important, but you still got to train them. Sure, they are covered by your trousers year round. Sure, they're a lot less important for your overall aesthetics. Skinny noodle legs though looks fucking, it looks weird when you've got a massive upper body. They're still noticeable through trousers, but you still want to train them. They're noticeable through trousers, but no one's going to look at your legs first when they see you for the first time. They're generally going to look at the upper section. They're going to look at your face, and this is another reason why the upper torso is just the most important part of the physique. And having that upper torso underdeveloped is going to make you look like shit. It's not going to make you look very strong. And that's why you want to have those shoulders, neck muscles, and trap muscles fully developed. And no one's going to look at your legs when they see you for the first time, or when they get a quick glimpse of your physique. Is mostly going to be the upper body. Still train them though, because you don't want to end up with weak knees when you're older. You don't want to be walking home from the grocery store and your knees are fucking clicking because your legs are weak as fuck. You know, legs are still important. They might not be important for aesthetics, but you do need good legs if you want to be healthy. If you want to have healthy knee joints, you've got to have strong legs. Some women like legs though, but most of the time, women will generally just look at your upper body when they examine your physique and your build. Final pointers. Make sure you're lean, because you can't be fat and aesthetic at the same time. The maximum body fat is 15%. Any more higher than that, then your face starts getting all round and puffy and bloated, and you start looking like shit. Get rid of any excess bulk on your physique because it's unattractive to women. Bulk does not just refer to fat, it also refers to muscle. Being overly muscular is still unattractive to women because it's just, they're not used to that. And sure, some might like it, but most of the time, if you want an attractive physique in the eyes of women, women are more likely to pick the lean, athletically jacked guy over the bodybuilder jacked guy. It just looks more athletically capable. Sure, the massive steroid bodybuilder, if he just punches you once in the face or even just slaps you, you're already on the ground. But that guy can't fucking run for shit. He's gonna run, he's gonna take 10 paces and he's going to gas out. But the guy that's athletically jacked, that's a little bit smaller, he's just way more likely to be athletic than the guy that's got all the mass on their frame. You know, you don't just want to be strong, you want to be athletic. And that's why that's another reason why chasing mass isn't good. You gotta chase the aesthetics. Chasing mass, not only does it look like shit and women aren't used to it, and not only does it signal insecurity because you're not happy about your current physique, but chasing mass or being massive, it just signals that you're not that athletic. Massive people aren't athletic. And at the end of the day, you can't just, like, at the end of the day, our ancestors couldn't have just relied on sheer muscle power. They still had to run. They still needed a good cardiovascular system so that they could gather resources. And so everything about aesthetics, it just comes down to function at the end of the day. We're still humans. Sure, we've got computers and all of that shit, but that only started really recently in human evolution. At the end of the day, our brains are still hardwired like they were in ancient times. We still function biologically and psychologically. We still function the same as we did in ancient times. This is why things are the way they are in this muscles priority list, in this aesthetics video. In this video where I'm teaching you how to build an aesthetic physique, this is the reason why it is the way it is. Gym culture is literally, all it is just an exaggerated version of what was physically attractive in ancient times. In ancient times, humans were not nearly as big as any of us gym bros or any of us guys that do resistance training. Resistance training did not exist in ancient times. Resistance training, people only started lifting weights in like ancient Rome. Okay, maybe a little bit earlier than that. But literally, if we look before 10,000 years of human history, no one lifted weights. Lifting weights is just an exaggeration of what was deemed attractive. And the reason why that was deemed attractive was because it signaled safety and security. Those things like being able to defend or being able to carry heavy shit or taking a good punch. If you had all those traits, you were just a better bet for survival. And so women obviously wanted to survive and reproduce, which is why they chose those guys that could easily facilitate that. And that ended up manifesting itself in having good shoulders, good neck, and good traps. Diet should be 80-20. I'm gonna be real here. I do not eat fully clean all the time. You want your diet to be 80% clean food and 20% whatever the fuck you want to eat, because if your diet is too strict, you're just going to give up and you're going to end up at square one. You don't want that. There's nothing wrong with having a donut here or there. Just don't have a fucking donut every day, because, or you could, but just make sure out of the calories that you are consuming, 80% of them are healthy for you, because not all calories are the same. You know, you could eat Domino's pizza every day, like I did at uni, like I did for freshers. Now, Domino's pizza, yeah, it might have good protein, but if you keep eating processed junk food just because it fits your macros, your hormones are going to be fucked at the end of the day. If you constantly eat shit like McDonald's or Domino's or processed foods just because they have enough protein and calories in them, your health is going to be compromised, and that includes your hormonal health. And it's super important to have good testosterone as a man, because testosterone helps you be energetic, it gives you drive, and it makes you able to fuck. If you have low testosterone, your dick's not going to get hard. And you don't want that. A life where you have high testosterone as a man is way better than life when you have low testosterone as a man. So make sure you've got a clean diet. Diet is super important. This isn't just about being aesthetic, this is also about being healthy. You can't be aesthetic long term if your health is shit. Just look at steroid bodybuilders. They end up dying after a couple years. They end up dying pretty young. Sure, they're in the best shape of their life. They're in better shape than any other human on earth, like all these steroid influencers, but their lifespans are a lot shorter because they're simply not healthy. Taking steroids is not healthy, which is why I urge you guys to stay natural. I've never taken any steroids in my life before. And your mindset, I'll be real, mindset isn't really needed, because if you really want the aesthetic body, you will work for it. But that's why building the body is the first thing every man will do if they want to self-improve. Building a body, it teaches you discipline. It's the easiest way to start becoming disciplined, which is why most guys that start self-improvement will build their body, because the reason why it's easy to develop discipline when you build the body is because you actually get tangible results. If you were to start self-improvement by running a business, let's say, you're not going to get tangible results right away. It's going to take you maybe 3 to 9 months until you get your first sale. If you're a really young, inexperienced guy, it's going to take quite a bit of time until you get your first sale. Whereas when you build a body, you can already start seeing results within even a month. Sure, you're not going to be fucking jacked after a month time, even if you take steroids. But you're not going to be jacked after a month, but you're going to see significant progress. You're going to see significant results. And that's just going to keep pushing you further and further and further. So when it comes to mindset, if you don't want it, then you're not going to get it. It doesn't even matter if you're disciplined. If you want the body and you're not actually disciplined, but you want it bad enough, you would be willing to do whatever it takes to get that aesthetic body. Otherwise, you could be the most disciplined man on the planet, but if you don't want it, you're not going to get it, because you're simply not going to put in the hard work that it takes to build a nice, ripped, aesthetic physique that women find sexually attractive. But when it comes to mindset, building the body, it reinforces discipline, because it teaches you that if you really want something, you will actually go after it. And it's the easiest way to install discipline into your mind, because you actually get to see tangible results. Congratulations if you made it to this far of the video. We're literally already at the end. If you found that to be helpful, you might want to go check out some of my other videos on my channel, and you can also go check out my course, which is literally a one-time payment. It's the top link in the description below. See you guys in the next video.